Welcome everybody to the Wonder Boldly podcast. I'm Christine Santos, bringing to you all of the action steps and knowledge I've learned on my journey to becoming an online business owner, quit my corporate job, and now live the life that I desire on my own terms. This podcast is jam-packed with all the knowledge I've gained over the past few years growing my online business. I am so passionate about you going after what it is that you want. I want to encourage and motivate you to know that you too can live the life that you desire. Thank you so much for listening. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wonder Boldly. So we are kicking off our series on fear and how to face our fears, how to move past them so we can go after our dreams, our goals, and the things that are important to us. This is a 4-part series. This is the first one. I will also be having an amazing guest on to talk about how she has pushed past her fears and share her story. And I will be giving you, as always, action steps that you can take to keep moving forward, even though we all face fear. So let me define fear a little bit in the context of this series. So this series is about facing our fears, facing our roadblocks to reaching our goals. So this could mean many things. It is specific to your own personal desires. So for me, for example, one of my fears was that I would not be able to spend more time with my family. And there were a lot of steps that needed to happen in order to make that a reality, which if you've been following along for a while, you know that I, a year ago, left my corporate job that I loved, was there for 27 years to spend more time with my family. And I had to really dive into what was my fear about leaving my corporate job. For example, I couldn't just up and leave my job without having money come in. And how was I going to make that happen and still have my desired outcome? So sure, I could find another job, but again, that wasn't giving me the desired outcome of being home more and being able to take care of my family like I wanted to. So I had to really dive in and look at this in a deeper way and a new innovative way on how this was possible. So before we dive into this, I do want to share a story with you. And it is a story about how I have faced fear most of my life. So when I was young, my parents got divorced and my father asked us to leave the state that we were living in. So we moved back to the state where my mother was from without him, with very little, if any, financial support. And what that meant was we were standing in line for government cheese and butter sometimes. Other times we were moving from apartment to apartment to keep cost of living down. My mother worked a lot to keep us afloat, and she is one of my heroes, as you know, if you've read my chapter in the book Authentic. And throughout my childhood, I had a lot of fear that something would happen to my mother. My brother and I would be left alone. My mother worked a lot, so my brother and I were home alone a lot or with a babysitter, and I was always so fearful that she wasn't going to come home, that something would happen to her. I had fear getting on the bus in the morning because the other children would throw their cigarette butts at me. I had fear of going to school because the other children would talk about beating me up or kick me in the hallway. As a child, those were things that I was fearful of, and not unlike other situations. Though, to paint the picture, that was sort of my day-to-day of facing fear every day, not wanting to go to school, for example, but going to school because I knew I had to, right? And there were good times too, please. I had friends and we had fun and we laughed a lot. And there were those times where I was fearful to be home alone. And there were those times where I was out at a friend's house having a great time. So I really took hold of things that I could control, because if I could control it, then I could prevent whatever I was afraid of. So that is how I went into my adulthood, which was a blessing in the sense of I was very successful in corporate. I climbed the corporate ladder. I was in upper management. And those were things that I felt really good about because of that underlying fear of not being able to financially support my family. But I felt like I could face those fears with those things that I could control. And for me, that was my career. Then I met my husband, my now husband at the time. He worked at the same place I worked. And we got married, we had a child, and he is fine now, before I say this, and he had a heart attack. So I relived that fear again of losing somebody I loved. So facing that fear again, as we all do when circumstances come up in life. And then we got past that. He is healthy. And then I'm still working, and I start realizing that I want to spend more time with my family. And how am I going to make that happen? I did not think it would be possible at all to leave my corporate job. And that really wasn't even the plan, maybe long-term plan, sure. I thought, okay, when all of these things are lined up, the stars and the moon are all aligned, I'll be able to leave my corporate job so I can spend more time with my family. And then my mother got sick. That was my wake-up call. So remember all the way back to the beginning of my story where I was always so afraid that I would lose her. Something would happen to her and my brother and I would be left alone. When she got sick, that fear came up again. And I thought, I cannot lose any more time, the time that I want to spend with my family. So a year ago, I left my corporate job, and now I spend my days spending time with family, going to my mother's appointments, being home when my daughter comes home from school, spending more time with my husband, all these things that are important to me. I made that happen by facing my fears of how could I even possibly leave my corporate job? I was making a good salary with security. I loved my job. The people I worked with were great. How could that even be? So I had to face a lot of fears. Because I decided to start my own online business, I had to get on social media. I was never on social media. And because of my upbringing, where I lived in places that I was very afraid of, fearful of our neighbors and things like that, for me to be on social media was a huge challenge. And step by step, I face my fears. And I say that in not the past tense because we all have fears. Every day there's a new fear that pops up. I certainly still live with mine, and I certainly have learned to face them. So I wanted to share that with you in this series, share the tools that I use, things that I learned and I am still learning. And my goal is so you can go out and do what it is that you want to do. Maybe your desire is not to leave your corporate job. Maybe you love your corporate job and you want to continue to climb the corporate ladder. Or maybe your desire is to lose weight. Maybe your desire is to travel. Whatever it is, everybody's different, but we have to face the fears that are preventing us from reaching those things that we want. So that is why I'm so passionate about this. And I want to share what I've learned. I want to share what I continue to learn in stories with you that will hopefully inspire you and motivate you to go after what you want. Before we dive into facing our fears head on and the things that we can do, I want to give you a tool that will help you along the way. I want to think of it like a safety net. It is a tool that you are going to face your fears, and you will have this safety net so that you can continue to move forward, because some of the things that we fear do happen, right? We're afraid to do public speaking. We're afraid we're going to forget what we're going to say. We're going to get on stage, and what's the worst thing that can happen? You get up there and you forget what you're going to say, and then you're embarrassed and you feel like people are judging you. Maybe you have a fear of failing at losing weight. Maybe you've tried forever and you haven't been able to lose that weight, and something always happens. You give up and you're like, yep, I knew that was going to happen and I can never seem to lose this weight. So whatever it is for you, this tool you're going to be able to apply so that in the next episode, we can start working on the skills that you need, the mindset that you need to face your fears. So get out your pen and paper, write down self-forgiveness. This is going to be your safety net. So when you are planning to face a fear, let's say that fear is failure to exercise every morning. Your goal is to get well. Your goal is to get fit. And you've decided that in order to do that, you want to exercise every morning. And you've tried this, and inevitably it's the winter months and it's cold and you don't want to get out of bed, or you stayed up late, you're overtired, you don't want to get out of bed, or you're rushed in the morning, you figure you'll do it at night, and then nighttime comes and you don't do it and you feel like you failed. What I want you to do is allow yourself in the planning, allow yourself the opportunity to fail. So what does that mean? So your goal is to get up in the morning and exercise every day because you're on a wellness journey. That's fantastic. And you've tried this before, you've sustained it for a while, and then you slip back into old habits, and then you're like, whatever, I failed at it, it's not happening, until something comes along that motivates you again. And I hope this is the thing that is going to motivate you again with this tool, self-forgiveness. So allow yourself 2 days that you are not going to exercise, or 3 days, whatever feels right to you, but know that going into the plan. Know that going into the plan, yes, something is going to come up. It's inevitable. And if you don't plan for those times, then you're going to feel like you failed, and you're going to reinforce that fear of failure. You're going to reinforce the fear of, I am not able to do that. I am afraid that I'm going to fail at getting well. And now look, I was going to get up every morning and now I'm not. And there, I failed. I knew that was going to happen. Instead, plan to not get up 2 times during the week, and know that when that happens, you have planned for that, and therefore it's self-forgiveness. It's okay. Yeah, it didn't happen this morning. I put all the things into place. I knew that if I set my intention before I go to bed, set out my clothes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm telling myself I'm getting up the next morning, and it doesn't happen. Instead of feeling like, oh, I failed, you'll be like, okay, yes, we know this is going to happen, and that's okay. And tomorrow I'm going to get up. So those self-forgiveness tools are like safety nets. So you keep a positive mindset. So you don't tell yourself, look, I failed. That's what I was afraid of. Can't make this happen. I can't stick to this. And I'm not succeeding on my wellness journey. So your action item for this first episode of the 4-part series of Facing Our Fears is to set yourself up with this tool of self-forgiveness. Make a plan, whatever it is that you are aiming for in your life. Make a plan, small baby steps. We've talked about that in previous episodes. And then allow yourself some time, some days, whatever's appropriate for your goal, that you will not meet that goal that day. Put that into place, write it down. Then when it happens, you're like, oh, knew that was going to happen. All right. So tomorrow I'm going to get up and do my exercise, and you're going to feel more positive. Again, it is about a positive mindset. I am so passionate about this. I know you can do this. So until next time, when we dive into tools to face your fears, I'd love it if you DM me. Let me know that you listened to this episode. Let me know what you're working on, and I am rooting for you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, it would mean the world to me if you give it a 5-star review and recommend it to a friend. I so appreciate you listening, and I hope that these episodes motivate you and inspire you to go after your dreams. Until next time, continue to wonder boldly.